Thank you, everyone, for joining the podcast. This is a very special podcast. Our today's topic is federated approach and movement from centralized to decentralized slash federated. All this confusion is there, and it has. I did this same session like 1.5 years back with my other folks, Marek, Ahmed, John, all those people, and based on that, we are able to get it approved in one of the organization as well, which was a good success. Now, I thought let's talk about this again because the other day I was doing a session for Dama, South Africa, where Remco was there. And right at this session, at that session, I think that talk was on my 4x4 formula. And right at the end, I introduced the word of data management, data practice management team. And that is where Ramco caught me. He said, he don't understand this team. So that is where then I had a session with him as well, and he could understand that what I meant. So I thought, okay, let's bring this topic again, federated approach, which in my point of view might not be successful without a team called data practice management team. Remco, I called it federated orchestrators.
I think that's a better term for it. With your idea behind it, I think that's a better term. Yeah, absolutely.
Last time I was calling it custodians. So Remco
Yeah.
suggested custodian might not be a good word because this team is not the owner, which is correct. This team are just the orchestrators. So I have a couple of slides with me. Few slides. I will go through those slides and then we will open this. So at least you guys have an idea where I am coming from. So let me.
And if I must, Mustafa, just jump in. The reason why I didn't like to come up with your first initial thought, right, with another team, I said, okay, no, we're not going to introduce another team to trying to do the same stuff again, what we tried with other teams before and before. So forget about teams. Calling it an orchestrator, I think that's indeed a correct term because it's more a role, a function than it sounds like, oh, we have to gather another group of people together which are going to do the same stuff. The other team didn't work out and it didn't work and whatever. So that's why I'm happy that you changed your names, Mustafa.
Yeah, players. It's all about getting different brainstorming ideas and polish ourselves, right? So this
Yep.
is the first slide. Let me know once you guys can see my screen. Yeah,
Yeah.
can you?
A little bit.
Okay, so this is the idea. The objective of the presentation is to talk about federated approach without DMP team. I will remove this word. Don't mind, Remco. This is federated orchestrators again to highlight the critical risk and inefficiencies which can arise from federated approach, which with the lack of oversight will become decentralized approach. What I'm trying to say is with this orchestrator team, if that team is not there, which in the end is this COE team, this is just a Google image, but this is the team I'm talking about. This is centralized where everything is centralized. I hope you guys can see my mouse, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
this
yeah.
is this is decentralized and this is federated. And as you can see on this generic sample image from Google, federated is in the middle. Now I will go further. So now this is the physical view. This was our centralized approach where we had a centralized team managing a centralized enterprise warehouse or a data mart, whatever, but managed by a centralized team, which was then connected with data governance team, enterprise architect, cyber security. Offshore, of course, there are other teams as well, but these are the major three teams which everybody connects with, right? But now, when we are coming toward this agentic AI era, AI agents era, where we are talking about everything will become a small product, right? So when we say small product, that is where we go towards decentralized or federated, which is where the confusion is. Now, if I click further, now this whole centralized piece in federated slash decentralized will become one product. And then slowly and steadily, more products will start coming in. Now, when more product will start coming in, it'll become like this. It'll become a chaos that everybody is talking to everyone and nobody is taking care that nobody have a bird eye view what is implemented where. That is where I call this as a centralized approach or decentralized approach. Now we'll bring this the federation orchestrators. So this data practice management team, the reason to keep it here, Remco, is because a lot of global personalities and entities are talking about this team. Maybe I leave it there, but I leave the other name as well over there. Maybe as time goes by, I hope this federated orchestrator name become famous, but as of now, it's not that famous. So this team comes in, and this team will have input from all data products, and this team will also talk to all those other entities and have best practices from enterprise architectures, governing policies from data governance, cybersecurity, all these things. So this team will have the bird's eye view of whatever happening inside your organization. And that is where I call this as a federated approach. Without that team, this team, I feel it will be very difficult. Now, Gartner also says that. Gartner says hardly every anybody is on centralized. People were hardly anybody is on decentralized. People were on centralized. Now they are moving towards federated approach slowly and steadily. This is a couple of years old report. And then I have an example where how this whole thing moves. I personally believe that initially we had decentralized, then we moved towards centralized, and then we moved towards federated. But somehow, because of this missing team, this federated is still going toward decentralized. How? Last time, this houses, and I just made up this example. Last time we had houses like this, where we had all these kind of no rules, team, self-team, low security. It was expensive. Land availability was unlimited, though. Space was unlimited. Construction was allowed. Water was dedicated, but there was no planned roads. There was no privacy. It should be low. There was high impact. So all these challenges were there. You wanted you want some hospitalization, all those kind of stuff. Very difficult to find people, right? That was decentralized. Now, when we move towards centralized, we made a building. We have condos. But in these, although ready to use, cheaper, high security, centralized team, preset raw rules are there, but there are limited. Now, limitations come with centralized, right? Limited apartment, limited lifts, limited number of residents can live there. You can't do any construction. You have water tanks shared. All those challenges start coming in. Now, data mesh comes in. Data mesh says start building a decentralized, and you end up making decentralized approach. That is where I like the idea of domain decentralization, but I still feel this federation orchestration team is missing. That is how. So now we talk about societies. Societies have houses, societies has building, but they have that rounding protection, right? They have some centralized team who are managing. So you can build houses, you can have building, but you still have that team who's overlooking everything, right? And but last but not the least, blind spot of decentralization that nobody has idea what is going on. I have many other slides, but I won't go into it. I'll jump back onto this slide, which I really like. This one, that is which makes sense. So I will stop sharing now and I will open the discussion for the panel. Who want to take it up? Remco, I think you should be the one because hey, Howard is here.
I would say Howard, he's the last one in, so he's the first one to comment on what you just showed. No, just kidding.
Okay.
How are you muted, by the way? I
Yeah.
think it's interesting. I was at a summit last Wednesday here in the Netherlands, and they were talking about governance. And the interesting part there was that someone was talking about, I think it was Winfried Edsel was talking about federated as well from a governance perspective. But he specifically said we have centralized, we have decentralized, and we have federated. So he put federated really outside it, separate from what you're doing. Right, is what you have the concentric circle. They are overlapping, and he
Hmm.
said no, federated is really something on its own. It's really it's one is
Yeah.
forming from the others. Basically, the same idea what you're saying, right? Centralized didn't work. Decentralized didn't work, so we need to do something different. And I still have an issue on your slide where you're kind of combining both, but I'm not sure if you're taking both of the best of both worlds.
Okay.
And I think it's all, and I think that also about the whole data mesh principle, right? It's all about how you socially, how you organize it from a social perspective, from a work perspective. How independent are all the different data product teams working versus how controlled they are? And I think that's, you try to kind of mimic it with that federated approach, right? Where you have some more central teams say, yeah, these are the ones setting the boundaries versus there are no boundaries. And that is more, I think it's more a social thing, that what's in data mesh as well, right? A social thing than a technical thing. Because let's be honest, technically it's easy.
Yeah, see, the idea is then I was discussing with someone else as well. We really need to understand why we came out of centralized. My point of view is people wanted to come out of centralized because of its limitations, bottlenecks, and they wanted autonomy. When we say they wanted autonomy, they wanted to come out of a building, they want to build their own house. When they want to build their own house, they need a lot of help. If everybody starts creating their own houses, again, you go towards the anarchy, chaos, right? Everybody will be building the whole. See, building a house is not the only thing. You need to build roads. You need to have hospitals. You need to have education side. All those things matters, right? So whatever event you were there last time, I think I still don't agree on it that there has to be third approach of federated. I believe that people want to go into decentralized with a management on top of it, with a someone who's looking after, just like housing society, right?
No,
That's
again, and then I keep my mouth shut and let others do the talking. I don't say I'm opposed to what you're saying. The only thing what I'm saying is it's all depending on, because people who do want to have their own autonomy, they do want to do their own stuff, and at the same time, an organization doesn't want anarchy. So they need to control stuff. So I get the idea of the federated stuff. So the orchestrator, I really think that's a better name for it. So there are some rules or whatever you need to do. You need to get improvement. But it is all about how the organization, how strict they are going to apply the rules versus what freedom do we give to people. And that balance, I think, is for every single organization completely different.
absolutely agree on that one. And just to conclude myself, with this orchestrated team, I personally believe the prerequisite is this team has to have a background, proper data background. Maybe I'm biased because I'm from a data background, but that's what I feel because the moment you go towards a small products, you need to know what products are talking about. Now let's go to Val. Hi Val. Actually, you are directly
Yes.
connected to a lot of people. I think you will be seeing this change in your region as well. How do you see this change happening?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with Remco around the actual implementation of it, right? Every organization is different. I've been through all kinds of stuff, right? So we've seen centralized, and again, same thing, bottlenecks, uh, full chaos, decentralized. I mean, in the sense they just basically drop a data team and expect them to come up with ideas and create products and what have you. No oversight, sort of fighting with CIO all the time. So again, chaos. But I think they're kind of I make two distinctions here, right? So one is production, right? You're going production grade products, right? You deploy something that runs autonomously, produces repeatable sort of results day in, day out, right? And that could be by domain, by function, by what have you. And for that, you need this sort of oversight, rules, governance, right? Then there is exploration, what I call it, right? Is where people don't know what they want, right?
Hmm.
They're just experimenting. It could be a spreadsheet that they're building, or they might be just experimenting with a dashboard, right? They don't necessarily have the time, the patience, the discipline to go and put production stuff on top of it yet, because they're still in sort of discovery phase, right? And for that, I think decentralized works because, well, just let them get on with it until it gets to a point where, okay, everybody likes this stuff, let's go and make it. And then you sort of put the governance and policies around that. And that's where I see it.
But isn't it that before we jump to Shane, but won't that become a challenge, Val? Because if you do R&D and exploration is centralized, so you end up creating a unified data model. But once you go towards production and you want your own small product, you need your small data model with you, which can be a graph model as well, which can be a star schema as well. But I personally feel that both environments or all environments need to have a replica rather than centralized to federated. What do you think?
No, fair point. But also, if you sort of if you constrain what people are looking for, right, to with whatever you have architecturally set up, you might just be stuck in that architecture without necessarily pushing the boundaries forward because you're forcing people to conform while they're in exploration phase, right? There's new tech coming out, new things. Do you see what I mean?
I think you're referring to a sandbox to give them a sandbox to play around, not a centralized approach. Because
Correct.
when we talk about centralized approach, we talk about bin and moon, 3N, pick one data model. You're not referring that. You're referring a sandbox where they can play whatever. Once they are successful, then they move toward the different. That I
Correct.
agree with you. Okay, awesome. Now next, Shane, we would like to hear from you because you are the one. I'm sure everybody knows that Shane has this amazing information product canvas, which I'm a big fan. In my 4-4 formula, I have still few items from Shane canvas as well. Actually, all those Shane's items are there in my 4x4 formula, most of those. And you are talking to management, and I'm sure you will be facing this challenges in past where you want, because your product canvas is based on a specific requirement and you have to die implement to a centralized approach. So that's a big gap. So how do you see that thing is changing?
So I spend a lot of my time coaching data teams, and often I get engaged when the organization wants to scale. And I have I've been doing data for 35 years. I'm old and grumpy and I'm very opinionated now. And I'm very careful. Stop laughing, Remco. And I don't like the word orchestrator. I don't like the word governance. I think it's been a failure. And why? Because we try and do command and control. And what I see work is enablement. So when we decentralize the data work, when we move it out of a central team of 5 to 9, and let's be honest, even when we had a central team of 5 to 9 in a large organization, the architecture, the governance was always outside the team anyway. There was a data governance team, enterprise architecture team, a policy privacy team, a security team. So the data teams were never fully value streamed, right? End to end. They were never enabled to start at the beginning and go to the end without talking to a whole bunch of people. But for some reason, when we talk about scaling teams, when we talk about pushing the work back down to the business units, to the other value streams of the organization, we think we have to govern. And what I talk about is enablement. So when we talk about policies, they shouldn't be fluffy words like all data should be protected. It should be a very clear rule. If you're holding a person's name, it has to be encrypted using SHA 256, right? And only the people with this role in the organization can access it. Once you define those policies, those rules that are very clear, then the other teams can comply with them. And in fact, we can audit them, right? We can audit them, or effectively we can use code to audit them without a human having to do it. But I think the other thing is when we think about centralized and decentralized and federated, we take a data domain view, right? We take it from our lens. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, actually data has always been decentralized because the number one tool for data in any organization is Excel. And that is not done by a centralized team. That is done by everybody outside the data team. And in fact, it's just got worse because with AI and the SaaS options that have come out and LLMs, my view is AI and LLMs has now become the Excel for data in an organization. Now, some organizations can protect against it. Some organizations are big enough and have enough infrastructure to stop people outside the data team using those tools with data, but not many. So the majority of the organizations I see now are seeing people using LLMs and those types of tools as the new Excel. So we are decentralized. And if we try and govern them, if we try and go out and say, oh, you've got to conform your data model when you're using ChatGPT, it's not going to work well for us, right? Because that's not, that language doesn't align anymore. So we have to become enablers. And I think we have a whole new way of working to discover based on that technology change, because the technology's finally given the business units, the people outside the data team, the tools they need to decentralize without us. So that's
Okay.
my view, right? Is
Okay.
help them do the right thing. Don't be a policeman fining them for speeding.
No, which is fine. Let me throw some spicy questions into it because I'm a solution architect. I think that's my role, to become uh, critical about all this devil's advocate kind of stuff, right? So, see, as a SA lead, let's say, I'm a solution architect lead, let's say, right? And this small data products start coming in. Now I have a challenge because there are so many data architect settings into so many domains. And then we all know vendor world, shadow teams are there. They are coming up with their own architecture. They are coming up with their own technologies. Now, when you say enabler, I will pick up that point. When you say enabler, that enabler has to be some human. It can be a code, but code has to be reviewed by someone. So when I say federation orchestrators team, it's a very small team, two, three, four people, who is looking what is happening into the ecosystem, which I call it data practice landscape. What is happening over there? I give you one more example. Last time our ROI was mapped like 2 to 3 years. Then with coming agile, it start coming back down to 1 year or maybe less than that with modular approach. But now since this AI agents come into picture, I foresee, which I might not be wrong, might not be right, it will come in less than 1 month or 2 months. Now small product will start coming. Now, when you mapping your ROI for 1 year, there will be 3, 4 iteration in the middle because every 3 to 6 months, new technologies are coming, new tools are coming, and you have to reinvest into it. Now, if you are a business, you might not know how the technology is moving. Now, this federation orchestrator teams are the one who are keeping their eyes open on the new technologies, new use cases, what new regulatory bodies and policies are coming which need to be embedded and need to have an plan. See, that is where I bring this team into it. Small team, not a book team, not an IT team. They will not have their own execution team. They will not have their own support team. They will not give you access and me access. No, they will have a complete overview how many products are there, underneath how many infrastructure is there, monthly basis, whether your billing cycle is going up or down. You plan for 1 year, but you end up consuming your compute power within quarter and you need to, you understand? So this orchestrator team will play that role. So Sean, when
Yeah.
you talk
So
about
so
enabler,
so let me yeah. So I think language for me is important, right? And so when you say orchestrator, I think airflow, right? I think you submit it to the tool and the tool does it for me,
Remco,
right?
this name also gone.
No,
Yep.
no.
Yeah. Now, if I think about an enabler team, right,
Hmm.
that's more pub sub, right? That's more a microservice. That's like, do you want this? Do you want this service or not? They're more like salespeople. And let me give you an example because it's the same skills. We're just changing how we engage. So the traditional way for a solutions architect is we go away, we think about the problem, right? We design a solution that fixes that problem. We then write that up, and then we go through with our peers and we go through some form of review, right? Maybe SRB or some kind of governance group or a more informal peer review with another architect. And then we go tell everybody what the answer is, and we then try and get them to comply with that answer. What an enabler does is they go out and talk to all the teams doing the work and they go, oh, well, you're doing that, you're doing that, you're doing that. Actually, did you know that there's 3 teams doing it the same way? So now we have gravity, we have critical mass, we have a solution that works because 3 teams have built it. We have 3 teams supporting it. And what we start to get is gravity of solutions. Now, the problem with decentralized architectures, decentralized teams, is they don't talk to each other because they don't need to. So they're not sitting there going out and canvassing what's happening in the wider organization, seeing where the value is, where tools they can use, where practices they can use and adopt will help them. So the enablers effectively become that. They become the people. I mean, what a cool job, right? You go out and you talk to everybody. You go, hey, that's really good. I'm going to go tell everybody else about it. And when we have critical mass, it'll get supported because humans are inherently lazy in a good way, right? So if I can see you've got something that does the job I need to do and it looks like it's okay, 9 times out of 10, everybody will adopt it. Yes, there's a couple of people who go, yeah, I'm going to go build it again from scratch because I'm just that type of person, but we'll ignore them. And actually, one of the podcasts I used to do, we had a gentleman from Spotify, and what he talked about was these teams that formed over time because all the other teams used a certain way of working or technology. Like the example he used was Jira. So 3 or 4 of the squads started using Jira, and then they said, look, we don't want to manage Jira, right? It's just an overhead for us, but we want to use it. So another squad stood up as a service provider. And then we did another podcast with Hire, and they have a really interesting model because every team has to justify themselves as if they're a vendor in their own company. And if nobody buys a service from them, that team actually gets disbanded and have to go and find another team. So that idea of we're not here to govern, we're not here to till, we're here to understand and enable and make everybody successful, I think is the mind shift we need to change to become federated. So same skills, slightly different role and different engagement model.
Yeah, I think we are talking the same thing. Maybe I have to refine my little bit wording as well. So I'll come back to you on this one. Well, you want to say something before I jump to Howard?
Yeah. And Shane is absolutely right. I mean, you need somebody sort of like an internal consultant, right? So whose job is just to go around. The only thing what I would add, and this is from experience, right? So we've done something similar before, and usually subject matter experts or domains tended to sort of, oh, well, he's a nuisance. Again, these, they tended to be IT people coming in and sort of, poking their noses what we're doing and not really bringing anything of value kind of thing. What we've done is we've paired those guys with actually domain experts, right? People who work with data, and it's usually 1 or 2 people who would know the domain inside out, right? And they'll support the entire domain there. They would become the ambassadors, so to speak. It's sort of like a virtual center of excellence, right? Because these people, even though they decentralize and so on, but through the nature of their curiosity and using a lot of data within their domain, they tend to overlap with other domains. So if you're working in marketing, you'll probably be talking to sales, you'll probably be talking to planning guys, right? You probably tip into some operational stuff, right? So these people know they have coffees with each other and so on. It makes it a lot easier to then do the internal sell, right? If there's a decent product, good idea, new dashboard coming up, hey, why don't you guys have a look at, what Shane's doing, what Remco is doing, right? It might be worth sitting down, having a coffee with them. That made it a lot more powerful, intangible. People could buy into it.
That's one of the idea of this team as well. Remco, you want to say something?
Well, I think I like the talks, and I cannot say I disagree. I only think it's going back to one more because you're talking about I'm a solution architect. This is what I'm doing. Chain comes up. I'm a coach, whatever. I like to be more coach than architect anyway, but that's nothing to say. But I think it's all about how you as a person or as an organization socially want to interact. Because Val was just saying absolutely right? Hey, we have people want to have something. We have domain experts, we have subject matter. Let's talk to each other. As Shane, basically, you're saying the same stuff. But I happen to also have worked in an organization where there are really thick walls between the different departments or different organizations, and the domain expert didn't want to talk to the subject matter expert because they claimed to be better. Whatever you're going to do is never going to work. And I think that there should be more focus on that. I think that's what I like about the data mesh part, at least to give that idea. There should be more focus on the social aspect. How do we get those people communicating with each other? How do we know what the other department is doing, right? Indeed, drink coffee with this group and this group and this group. Being the consultant, you have your own internal consultants switching around. Then you understand what it is. I don't like the focus on technology, because Mustafa, you're absolutely right. There's so much going on to new technology, new technology. At the same token, I literally advised a couple of organizations. They said, do we need to go to the new technology? I said, why? Are you missing something? No, but there's new technology. Yeah, but so what? You have all the information you want. You get all your analysis. You can have your dashboards. You have everything. Why should you focus on something new? And interestingly enough, yes, there are people who needs to explore. That's why also I send out the magic quadrant, of the quadrant from Ronald Damhoff. I think that's a good read on his way on on a data perspective, what and where. Yes, you need to have people exploring. Sure. But if people are happy, why would you move away? And I know the vendors like us to move away, right? So they like us to do the newest and the latest, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm going to shut up because I want to hear Howard as well.
So just to bring, I think Howard has listened all our discussion, but let me still uh, re-say our topic today is about centralized moving towards federated. You joined later before I presented my few slides as well. So Howard, tell us about your experience, how people are moving from a centralized to federated approach, or they are getting caught into the decentralized approach where nobody knows what's happening. How do you see this shift?
Sure. So I can give you some background from a governance point of view, and I do agree with Shane that I always perceive governance to be an enablement and not a command and control. And I think people naturally lean towards the command and control because it's easier for them to justify. But I think part of the problem that we have is that I don't think the people around the room have a common understanding of what the different types are, from centralized, decentralized, federated, hybrid. And I can tell you now, when you use the two words of decentralized, federated in one sentence, to me, that's an oxymoron. It just doesn't happen. You either go completely siloed or you go with federated, which is a combination of central and different autonomy at different levels. So I think we have a problem there with our use of terminology and our common understanding of what those different models are. And then what I like to do when I help programs establish is understand, well, how am I going to choose the right operating model? And how do I make sure that I align with the business's operating model and not try to create another one based on some technology that's saying go this way, and then I contradict what's happened. And a lot of the times that's, guys, what is the culture of the organization? Is it driven by top-down decision making, depending on their choice of value, like a Walmart and stuff like that, that they don't allow choice at the bottom. This is my way, this is what we're getting, and this is the way we're going to go. Whereas other people are different ways. Now, my experience has been with some of the big banks that they flip-flop between centralized, decentralized, federated 5 or 6 times. And I keep on saying, well, why do we keep on going backwards and forwards? And understandably, both of them every single time are saying we're not getting value out of it, whether I'm centralized or decentralized or wasting money on this area. And it's like both situations are getting destroyed or annihilated by not producing value. So honestly, I don't think it's one is going to justify value. It's the approach that each team has on delivering value for the organization and helping them overcome the challenges or make money or whatever it is. Doesn't matter where you centralize or decentralize. Some things just can't and shouldn't be decentralized. For example, some level of security. I mean, you're not going to have a different approach. And I like Shane's thing of saying the policy that we need to set is about what are going to meet the standard baseline expectations of data management in the organization. We protect it like this, we quality like this, we do this like this. These are the standards. The way in which you implement it for your data set is the way in which you implement it. As long as you can adhere to my policy, then we're good in this situation. So I find there's a whole lot of challenges there for us to be able to try to justify one model over the other. And I haven't seen one model work over the other. I see different organizations jumping between different models.
Yeah, just to add it here on Howard and Ramco point as well, right? So let me throw we have a time check of 15 minutes only, guys. So this is a real-time example because I'm sitting on the other side of the table where I'm working right now. Most of the time, Howard, when new technologies come, and as Remco mentioned, that if your dashboard is working fine, it is doing your BAU work, why you want new. So sometimes I see 90% of the time people think if they don't adopt to the new technology, either their department is going to wipe out, either they are going to replace with the new personalities who is opt up with the new technology. So these are the challenges which enable everyone to jump onto the new technology. So how do you see that? How to stop them, Howard? Right? In my 4 by formula, one dimension is question answer, which is taken from Shane. I have to give credit to Shane.
So,
Question answers, actions, and value. If your
yeah.
product do not have these 4 cores, someone has to take a decision. No, we are not moving with this project. What do you think about that?
And so many times I see people jumping on the new technology. I go in there and the CIO's got this thing and stuff like that. And a lot of the times, for me, it boils down to is that we don't have a proper data strategy, data management strategy, IT strategy. So we all Hail Marys. Everything is Hail Mary. This new thing is going to be the next Hail Mary. And we just not strategizing properly and not our strategies are either too long. It's like a 5-year strategy. After 3 months, it's a waste of strategy and no one even talks about it. So, how do we get continuous strategy and continuous value that we're delivering? How do we get driven by commercial and technical feasibilities and not have to always say, well, this is the new tech that's going to help? Of course, you want to listen to where technology is going so you can enable faster delivery, but that's about it. I mean, what are the problems the business are facing? What is the opportunities, and how do we solve this thing as quickly as possible? Not what is the tech or things like that.
And I
Yeah,
think
And
we
and,
and
and,
I
and
think
if I can have a live example about one example I experienced, not live because it was a long time ago, because also, well, I'm not a grumpy old man. I'm saying I'm an old man. I'm not so grumpy most of the time.
You'll learn,
Uh,
Remco,
but
you'll
but
learn, don't worry.
but I was hired by a insurance company, and they were doing niche insurances. Let's say anti-kidnap insurances. Not a lot of people in Netherlands need to have that insurance, but they were on that market. The director says we need to have a full-blown CRM system because it's now there's a new CRM system coming live, and we need to have it. They had, I would say, 150 customers in the Netherlands, and they were basically, or in the Benelux, the only part. Why do you need to have a full-blown CRM system for 150 people? Stupid. He also said, yeah, I'm the old guy, so I was noting also that the period of time where the web-based dashboarding came up. So Cognos Web was coming up and said, yeah, we need to have it as well. They had basically had 2 offices and they were connected to each other, and everybody was doing their work from the office. Why would you have a web-based solution? And the only reason he wanted it, because he was at the golf course with some of his peers or whatever, and he could say, "Ooh, I got the latest technology. We are now web-based. Look on my phone, I see some message." Because those were the first
Remco,
words.
maybe if I can just, what's important to me is he's listening to that because his people aren't guiding him.
Yeah.
correct.
I think we need to be clear that a lot of the time people change technology to keep busy. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
busy work. So we look and we go, company's not making enough money. Yeah, hard problem. Let's not fix that. The organizational structure's not been effective, right? Business units or teams are arguing, they're not aligning. We don't have a business strategy that anybody understands. We don't have a product strategy that supports the business. We can't do a data strategy because effectively none of those other 2 things align. And our
Yeah.
data strategy should be how do we use data to support the business strategy being successful. And so what a lot of people do is they go, well, we can't solve any of those problems, but we have to do something. So let's go change technologies. Oh, we got Snowflake. Let's go for Databricks. That's 3 to 6 months, maybe 12 of busy work. And we can pretend that that will solve all these other problems, knowing that it won't. And that is one of the core problems. We should be held to account like everybody else is. Finance can't get away with saying, oh, we overspent in the organization by $2 billion. Sorry. Right. Yet data people can go, oh, we put in yet another platform and didn't change the organization's appetite or use of data. So I think part of it is our fault, but part of it also is, if you look in most organizations and you look in their structure, data teams look like shared service teams. Yeah, we look like finance, we look like HR. Yeah, we don't sit within the business units, within the value streams that do the work, and therefore we become isolated. But unlike finance and unlike HR, we don't have autonomy and control. We can't stop people spending. We can't stop people hiring. We can't stop people not using data, and we can't stop people using data in the wrong way. So actually, it's the organization structure of where data people sit that is the core problem. And it comes from the organization structures of 20, 30 years ago. And we haven't adopted where data people sit. Yeah. And that, I think, for me, is the root cause problem, which leads us towards federated or decentralized.
Sorry, check out the wording from Winfried Etzel on this one. He's a data governance guy, but he's exactly saying, hey, we have an HR administration, we have a finance administration, we need to have a data administration, which is basically a vertical on all the process where organizations make money. Make them accountable, and it's not saying, oh, we have a CDO, but we need to have an organization which is held accountable for use of data, has their own stuff going, and when something goes wrong on data, just like on finance, right? If finance is overspending, the CFO is being fired.
Remco, it's hard, because I've seen that with banks. They've gone for a centralized data office. 3 years, 4 years later, they disbanded because they're not producing value. They've spent so much. They've looked at their own navel for 4 years, and they just haven't listened to the business. So it's not an easy one. And to me, it is about getting the right organizational design, the right model for that business, not trying to be dictated by anything else other than what's right for the business and how we can help the business.
Absolutely. So just a time check. We have 8 minutes left, and I want to throw this one last bit onto it: agentic AI, which I feel is a byproduct of federated approach. So we have 2 minutes each. Gentlemen, we start with Val. 2 minutes each.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, what does the agentic AI do? I mean, it's just really gonna displace people. Let's be honest about it, long term, not maybe now. But essentially, it's an additional employee, robotic in the sense, but they will be doing tasks, right? Now, it's based a lot of it on data and interacting with other departments, other functions, other domains, right? Somebody has to set it up. Somebody needs to know how it works, get the data right, and also validate what the agents do, because they'll never be perfect, right? So, and as Howard was saying, if we are in that state now where companies don't know where they want to go, how they want to structure it, set up their architectures properly, right? Keep changing their mind. What would the agents do then? It'll be a chaos, right? So I don't necessarily see it as a threat at the moment. Yeah, everybody's running around. The agent's going to solve all the problems and world hunger with it. I think it's going to be a massive mess in the short term until we get somewhere and change organizations to suit this.
And I feel if this DMP team is not there, you will have thousands of agents sitting in your organization. That's what I feel. Okay. Next, Shane, tell us about this agentic AI, your perspective.
So if you're a large enterprise, you never let a user with Excel plumb into your SAP system natively in real time and enter some records in Excel and hit save, and it updated the order in SAP. So why the hell would you let an AI agent integrate into your SAP system and do that? And so they won't, right? It's the companies that don't have an enterprise stance, yeah, that have autonomy of teams who will, we know that organizations between 1,500 employees have somewhere at the moment between 7 and 100 SaaS systems, software as a service systems. The AI agents are going to take us to 1,000. They have chaos coming, but they had chaos anyway. We had RPA, robotic process automation for large enterprises. I think AI agents will become a more efficient, effective way of doing that. So that's where I think enterprises will adopt it. Yeah, it's my view.
You're saying replacing RPA only, not rest of the data products.
I don't see a large bank allowing 5,000 agents into an internal marketplace, hooking into their SAP system as a back office and driving stuff. They'll do experiments, and I know of banks in the EU that are experimenting with it. But I think, they take a considered approach because they have the corporate governance and controls in place to stop things like this happening. It's the smaller organizations that don't have that controls that chaos will reign even more than it does right now.
Remco, 2 minutes.
Well, I'm going to take the complete opposite approach. No, just kidding. I think AI, the agents, right? They are now seen as the new magic wand. I'm whooshing it around, and I got my data straight, my report straight. I have my strategy straight. I got my decision straight. It's all working automatically. And of course, that's not going to happen. But it's the same as well. I spent some time already in BI and data warehousing with all new stuff, right? Same, right? We had Snow. Oh, we go into the cloud, doesn't work out. Oh, the data lake doesn't work. Oh, we have now Snowflake. Now we have Databricks. Now we have. It's adding up, trying to say we are bringing your solution without knowing what the issue is, without talking about what we need to achieve, without whatever. Is not a solution. If you don't have everything in place and you don't know what you're doing, it's not a solution. But people are going to play with it. It's going to be a huge blast in all organizations, and they're going to throw it away.
I can give you an example. In the agentic AI, LLM is just one agent, right? And we all know that this LLM, still there are hardly any success stories for LLM. And we are talking about
they are great assistants. I'm using it myself. I have my own, and like other people experimenting, it's a great assistant. But I would never ever say, okay, this is it. This is how it works, and it's automatically going away. It's the latest trend going to, just like blockchain, right? I think 5-6 years ago, everybody, oh, we got blockchain, and you show the Gartner, the hype cycle, and it's going up, of course, because everybody's pushing it, and it's way down. And I don't think, well, apart from some niche parts, blockchain is ever going to do anything. Agentic AI, on the majority, I think they have a better chance to come commodity, but slim.
very, very specific, like call center.
There will be from very specific part where it will help. On coding, it will help. On documentation, it will help. There are some specific niches.
DevOps.
But it's not your magic wand.
Yeah. Last but not the least, Howard, floor is all yours. Last 2 minutes.
So I like Shane's analogy to RPA, and it reminds me of, I had to set up an innovation hub in a central bank. And what I did was I said, we have to start with our decision making and understand the nature of that decision and the state of the information that we know about the decision. So RPA was very good at simple cause and effect. We understood everything about simple cause and effect. And I believe that agentic AI, and that's the great place to have it. Now, when you try to push it into other areas that are complex and exploratory type of stuff, you're not going to win in that area. So a lot of the times we present it as the answer to everything, but not recognizing what state of information we have on that it's going to work on. Not us, it's going to work on. So if we and the information can't answer questions and know the cause and effect, then what are we expecting this tool to do?
I think this is a very good takeaway from Shen. this RPA, the starting point of this agentic AI in any organization, this RPA can be a starting point for you, because as you mentioned, Howard, in RPA, you already know in which applications you are hitting what you're expecting and what action you need. And maybe agents can be built for that. Again, we have a time check. Thank you so much. It was a great session. Anybody want to say any last words before we wind up this session? All good?
Lovely to meet you guys.
See you guys. Thank you.
Yes, talk to you. Bye bye.
Cheers. Cheers.
Yes.